Acknowledge me!
Hello and welcome to Bitchin' About Wrestling, the show where the Wisemen talk about everything WWE. If this is your first time here, I appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you stick around. I'm a fan of WWE, and normally I am accompanied by some of my fellow colleagues, whether it be Alex, Neil, Ryan, Rax, Nick. But unfortunately, all of them were unavailable this evening, so it is just me riding solo tonight. And I am completely out of my comfort zone. This is not how I normally run my podcast. I don't do solo shows. I've done one of these before, and it was the most uncomfortable, difficult experiences I've done. Looking down the lens and talking to an audience and not getting that immediate response. It's a very strange sensation for me because I've been doing my other podcast, and which is called Creative Control, the entertainment podcast, where we talk about movies and TV shows. And we've been doing that for a couple of years now. And it's a very similar format. I have my friends onto the show, and we literally talk about movies, and the same here. We're here talking about wrestling. So hopefully you'll stick with me. Whether you're excited, it's your first time, whether you're a repeat viewer, I really appreciate you being here. Show me some support. I'd really appreciate it. I know there's some fantastic commentators out there and some great influencers talking about WWE on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, wherever it is. And I'm just trying to do something similar, just give my thoughts and opinions and see if there's people out there who respond to me and like what I have to say, or maybe even controversially don't like what I have to say, because ultimately that tends to be what gets you a lot more viewers. But hey, if you can hit that like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Bitchin' About Wrestling, and you can follow us on Twitter at Bitchin' About WWE and TikTok at Bitchin' About Wrestling as well. You can follow us on Creative Control, the entertainment podcast, on those platforms. And if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you can get it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, anywhere you get podcasts, we are there. Both that's at Bitchin' About Wrestling and Creative Control. So yeah, let's talk about WWE. Let's start with what happened on SmackDown this last week. It opened with the Grayson Waller effect, with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller coming down to the ring. Not the best reception, as you can imagine. And their guests for the evening, though, got a huge pop. Cody Rhodes came out to the ring, and he went up to the top turnbuckle to do his extra whoa before he gets into the ring. But his music was cut by Waller. He didn't want him making it all about him, which I thought was a nice touch. And then Cody also went to try and give his, hey, what do you want to talk about? And again, Waller interfered, finishing the sentence for him, making Cody Rhodes feel very frustrated and uneasy. I did quite like that. But Waller called out Rhodes. He said he was selfish, and because of him, all his friends were getting beaten up. And can't say I disagree with him. Waller's talking facts here. But the American Nightmare pointed out that he was kind of a bit of a hypocrite and asked Austin Theory when he was going to wise up and leave Waller. So it didn't go down too well. And Waller responded by saying, hey, you know what, your friend KO, who you're going to be having a match with at Bash of Berlin, do you think he's really your friend? Do you really think he's going to stay on side? And he showed a video of KO betraying all his past friends, which was just fantastic. I absolutely love this. Obviously, Sami Zayn. We had Chris Jericho, Kofi Kingston, Sami Zayn again. And yeah, it was great to see that. It showed that when in the right mood, Kevin Owens is willing to do whatever it takes to get to where he wants to be. And that's kind of where I wanted to see this going with KO. I don't think anything's going to happen before Bash of Berlin, but I think maybe after the match he has with Cody, potentially he's going to feel like, actually, this is what I really want now, because he's been talking about how he doesn't deserve the title shot, but I think he's going to get that hunger for it. I think maybe if he comes that close, he's then going to maybe start making that turn on Cody. And that's how I'd book this. I'd want him turning on Cody. I'd want then a heel turn from Randy Orton following that. Leave Cody alone, more exposed to the bloodline, and now then form a relationship between him and Roman Reigns to take on the bloodline. And then they can get maybe Jimmy and Jay and Sami Zayn involved, and then that's when I'm going to want Cody Rhodes to do a heel turn on Roman Reigns. I think that would just be beautiful. But hey, Kevin Owens didn't really like the video package, and he came out saying, Cody Rhodes is my boy, I'm never going to turn on him. And he cut through the bullshit, and he just said, look, there's no point me coming down here, hitting you, and then the general manager comes out later and makes a match. So he says, GM, Nick Aldis, let's just have a match. Make it official. He come out. I said, yeah, let's make it official. We're pushed for time, so let's go. Kevin Owens said, have I got time to go just down there and punch him in the face? He's like, yeah, make it quick. So we got a little tussle, and obviously that led to the main event match for the evening later on. Then we had LA Knight versus Santos Escobar for the United States Championship on SmackDown. Before the bell, Angel Umberto attacked LA Knight, just trying to subdue him and weaken him before the match. But it kind of backfired because Angel, Umberto, and Lopez were all ejected by the official from being around ringside. Knight and Escobar, had a fairly decent match. They traded finishing attempts. Both competitors looked really strong. But after a massive elbow off the top rope and a BFT by Knight, he successfully defended his championship in his first title defense. Look, we knew that was going to happen. There's no way that he was going to lose his first title defense on SmackDown, but it was a good match, and I think hopefully they can build on this rivalry. I hope it's not a one and done. But these days, in terms of repeat championship opportunities, it doesn't necessarily always happen. We end up going to number one contenders and stuff like that. So we'll see what it brings. Then we had Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi versus the Unholy Union and Blair Davenport. Now, I didn't even realize that they'd been tagged the Unholy Union. And this is Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, the tag team champions. I don't know how long that's been a thing, because I've always thought they should have a tag team, faction kind of name. But apparently this was now, and that happened. But yeah, Belair, Jade Cargill, Naomi, they kind of reunited to take on the tag champs and Blair Davenport. It was a fairly decent match. We had a lot of isolation. Fire, Dawn, Davenport, Issa, Belair. But finally, the EST made her way to tag in Cargill with a hot tag, and she came in, sort of like destroyed everybody. And then Naomi hit a split leg moonsault onto Davenport to gain the victory for the team. So it was kind of strange leading up to Bash at Berlin, where the two tag team challengers and the champions were kind of not the highlight of the match, in a sense that neither of them finished it. But I guess that leaves you a little bit more guessing to where the outcome of that tag match is going to be. Because normally if the good guys or the bad guys, whoever gets the win on the show before, then you kind of feel it's going to go the other way on the PLE. But fairly decent match, but nothing to write home about. I'm not feeling the story element here. So the only thing I'm hoping at this point is Jade Cargill heel turn. That's what we need. So we'll see what happens after Bash in Berlin. Then we had the Bloodline versus the Street Profits for the WWE Tag Team Championship. The Street Profits won their number one contender tournament last week, so that match was set for tonight. It opened with Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline gloating about their beatdown of Roman Reigns the week before, and showing their authority within the business, and that Roman Reigns, I think, is going to be taking a couple more weeks out. So he's come back, made a big impact. We'll see when he's going to return, and whether he'll be alone or whether he'll come back with Jimmy or maybe Paul Heyman. It's to be seen. Also, before the match, Solo Sikoa obviously had to address the point that Jacob Fatu, who won the tag team championship with Tama Tonga, he was injured, and the story was, we mentioned on the previous podcast, was that Jacob Fatu was going to be injured after the match at SummerSlam, so they could keep him away from Roman Reigns for a couple of weeks. However, he ended up getting legitimately injured, and as you've seen over the last couple of weeks, he's wearing a boot. And so he can't really compete, even though he destroyed Roman Reigns last week wearing the boot. But yeah, he needs to rest it. And so Tonga Loa took the place of Jacob Fatu in the Bloodline defense of the tag team titles. And it was kind of made that Jacob Fatu was now being kind of elevated to the enforcer within the Bloodline. I mean, it's a little bit weak. I don't know if they need to make much of a thing of this, but, because tag team championships, they kind of have that rotation now, especially when there's like three individuals. The New Day have done it where different people have defended it at different times. I think they could have just made that a little bit clearer, as opposed to it being a case of almost stripping Jacob Fatu of the belt to hand it over and giving this crappy promotion. But hey, it is what it is. I thought Tonga Loa actually looked much better in this match. Obviously, he's had his criticisms over the last few weeks and made a few little mistakes from his debut and moving on, kind of missing some spots. But I thought he did really well in this match, and credit to him. He's had a couple of weeks out. Maybe he's been spending some time, honing those skills. And, he has been a great performer in New Japan previously. So it isn't a case of he's really new to the business and he's underdeveloped. I think, I don't know if it's a nerves thing or, just the size of WWE. Who knows? But hopefully he's just going to get back on track back on track, and this is a really good place to start. But the Street Profits were rolling until, they were looking good in this match. It was a really good match anyway, two really good competitive teams, some real nice high spots, and the Street Profits were on top. But obviously Jacob Fatu had to get involved, and he super kicked Angelo Dawkins wearing his boot behind the referee's back, and this allowed Tonga to pick up the win to retain the title. After the match, the Bloodline started their beatdown on the Street Profits, and out to try and rescue him came DIY, who were obviously in the tag tournament finale last week with the Street Profits, and who've obviously tag champions not that long ago, and who lost it to the Bloodline. But ultimately, the Bloodline came back out on top, and they finished standing strong. So I'm wondering now whether the next kind of thing we get is like a triple threat for the tag team championships. I think that might be quite nice. Get DIY, Street Profits, and the Bloodline involved in that all together. We then had a backstage segment where we had Nia Jax overhearing Chelsea Green and Piper Niven talking about how Tiffany Stratton was going to probably turn on Nia soon. And, it's pretty obvious it's going to happen, but I'm not sure they really need to be spoon feeding us this point. But I guess it's kind of to create the unnervousness of Nia and her friend. And Tiffany's all going to be like, no, of course I'm not going to do it. And but I think that's going to be a real face turn for Tiffany. I think when she ultimately cracks down on, I think that's going to be a real face turn of Tiffany Stratton when she eventually cashes in. Nia the bad guy, she's going to be sort of like belittling her and treating her like crap over the next few weeks, maybe even months, and then it'll be a great spot where she does make that turn, cashes in, and becomes champ. It's got to happen, right? And then we had the main event of the evening: Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens versus A-Town Down Under, and undisputed champion Cody Rhodes, he teamed with his ally. Obviously, they're facing off each other with Basher Berlin. So as you normally do on those build-up, you put the two people competing together. And obviously, as friends, it kind of adds to that kind of spice. So there was some kind of miscommunication through the match, kind of like leading to potential, doubts between the two. But ultimately, Rhodes and Owens, they came out on top. KO hit a pop-up powerbomb on Waller to win the match. There was a nice little segment just towards the end of the match where KO picked up the title and he looked at it and he made a run for Cody Rhodes, but just to hand him his belt, and not that he was going to hit him with it. But yeah, it was a nice little tease. And like I said, I think it has to be a KO turn at this point. I'd be disappointed almost if after the match they just walked away as friends. I need something more. I need something more for Cody to be on in terms of this rivalry, because if it's not going to be with the Bloodline, who would be next? Sound off in the comments and let me know. So next week on SmackDown, we have a street fight for the WWE Women's Championship as Nia Jax defends her title against Michin. Also next week on SmackDown, we have a US Open Challenge. So LA Knight made it clear that he was going to Berlin, and if anybody wanted to crack at his championship, they are welcome. So similar vein to John Cena and what he did with the US title, we get different challenges popping up and making a claim for that title. And I'm wondering whether that might be something that WWE pull. The fact that it's in Berlin, they've been really, really promoting the hell out of this. They did some really nice packages on both shows this week where they're talking about the importance of Germany to the WWE and how it's like one of the first countries outside, well, I think it was the first country outside the US that they held an event. And I'm wondering whether John Cena might answer the Open Challenge. I think that'd be quite something. Someone who introduced it to the US Championship and then he come and claim it back. I don't think he'll win against LA Knight if it was to happen, and it'll be really good for him putting him over, but it could be a really big pop for that crowd, because I'm sure the crowd in Berlin are going to be fantastic. We also got teased Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes. They had a little backstage segment, and it's obviously 2-1 to Andrade, but Andrade really wasn't happy with the way that Carmelo celebrated last week, and he wants another match. And hey, I'm all for it, because those two have put on banger after banger after banger. So they can just keep going for all I care. I think it would go to a 2-2. I think that would be the right thing. For me personally, I want Andrade to come out on top eventually, but I think it should go to a 2-2. But maybe stretching it to that 3-1 will just drive Carmelo Hayes a little bit more crazy, and you could drag it out even longer. Like I said, I could keep watching these two wrestle every single week, and it wouldn't disappoint me. So we'll see what happens. And there's a match potential. Legado del Fantasma versus Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin. There's a backstage segment where they're going to kind of sort out their differences. So I'd imagine that's going to be something that happens on the SmackDown before Bash. It's not 100% confirmed, but I think that's where it's headed. So that's everything that happened on WWE SmackDown this last week. Let's head over to Monday Night Raw. So the show opened with a Judgment Day, with obviously the new Judgment Day, where we had Liv, Dom, Finn, JD, and Carlito. They came out basically to just talk about them and how, again, Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, they betrayed the Judgment Day. It was the same song, same hymn sheet, nothing really new here. The nice thing was that Dom was severely booed out of the building. Well done to the crowd for that. He just couldn't say anything really. It was fantastic. I do love the fact that when he gets really angry, he switches to Spanish. I think that's really, really good. But yeah, nothing really fresh to say there. But obviously they're just trying to push that match forward between the Terror Twins and Dom and Liv before Bash in Berlin. But out come the LWO, which was a nice surprise. Rey Mysterio has been off the show a couple of weeks since he lost to Dom in the mixed tag that he had with Selena Vega. And yeah, it was good. I liked Rey and Dom on the mic. It was pretty good. Rey was telling about how, you know, Dom was being a bigger dick than ever. He needed to be checked. That when he was with Rhea, at least one of them had a pair of balls. Obviously not him, and they wanted to slap the mustache off his son's face, which I thought was pretty good. Dom didn't take him too kindly. He said, you know, make a move, and so a brawl ensued, which obviously then led to our opening match of the night. So we had a impromptu 8-man tag match between the LWO and the Judgment Day, and I have to say it was pretty entertaining. It had some really nice spots in it. There was a particular great spot where we had all 4 members of the LWO in the match, and they were crossing the ring, and they had a high up camera angle of it. So you had 2 running this way, another 2 running this way, and they all jumped over the top of the ropes, land on each of the opponents on the 4 sides of the ring. That was a really nice shot, really well done. Some great high flying moves. You had the LWO off springboard off the mid rope again. Yeah, it was a really, really good match and highly entertaining. But Rey Mysterio hit Dominic with a 619, and he was about to go for the frog splash, but on the way down, Liv pulled her man out of the way, and so moments later Dom picked up the quick pin to secure the victory over the Judgment Day. So that is back-to-back victories for Dom over his dad, obviously in tag team competition, but hey, it all counts. Daddy Dom is on top. Following the bell, though, the Judgment Day thought it'd be a good idea to beat down on the LWO, but to the rescue, we had the Terror Twins. I don't know if that name is growing on me yet or not, but Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley unmerged to unleash hell on the faction and send a message en route to their mixed tag match at Bash in Berlin this Saturday. And obviously they were left standing tall at the end, as opposed to last week where they were beaten down. Let's move on. Then we had Damage Control versus the Pure Fusion Collective. That is a name I will not get used to. It's a terrible, terrible name. Just change it to Pure Fusion or the Collective, something. It's this PFC is just, it's nonsense. It really is. But Sonya Deville was causing lots of issues with Damage Control outside of the ring, and towards the end of the match, Selena Vega emerged back for some payback against Sonya Deville for obviously putting her out of action a little while ago. And the distraction allowed Kairi Sane to hit the insane elbow on Zoe Stark for the win, as Io Sky leaped onto Shayna Baszler at the ringside with the over the moonsault. We then had a Drew McIntyre promo. This is kind of our happy Drew. This is the I am speaking the truth, Drew, and everything he says is absolutely accurate. But his work at the moment on the mic, in the ring, online is just phenomenal, and he really commands a presence. And he said, "You're living on nostalgia" on CM Punk. When I was here through some of the darkest times, as obviously led WWE through the pandemic, and it all rings true. I think that's a beautiful part about this story. There's no untruths to it. Obviously, it's a perspective situation, but yeah, fantastic. And he said that CM Punk was a coward and that he, was always attacking him from behind. And truth be told, that's exactly what CM Punk did. He surprised Drew McIntyre from behind, started whipping him with the strap that they're going to be using for their strap match at Bash in Berlin. And we had a bit of a back and forth between two before eventually people had to come out and separate them. But a really nice feud, solid segment on the build up. Didn't go into, too much, just enough for me, because I don't need to see any more before the big match. Then we had the start of the Intercontinental Championship #1 Contenders Tournament. So this is going to be made up of a series of 4 triple threat matches. And so therefore those 4 winners will move on to a fatal 4-way to determine the number one contender. So a nice simple format, really like the structure. Not a huge fan of the triple threats because they're all DQ, so you get more shenanigans in the match finishes. But hey, it gets more superstars involved and it's not going to drag it over weeks and weeks and weeks where we have 2-on-2, in terms of 8 matches or whatever it is. So 4 matches, 4 winners, fatal 4-way, job done. So the first match we had was Jey Uso, Kofi Kingston and Karrion Kross. We all knew, looking at the start of this match, of those 3 contenders, it was going to be Jey Uso with the win to go through to the tournament fatal 4-way, and that's exactly what proved to be the case. The main event, Jey Uso hit Karrion Kross with a spear plus splash combination to advance into the next round. So decent match, some fairly nice spots, but it was a little bit of a mix of contrast in terms of styles. But I thought Karrion Kross actually did quite well. He came across, quite strong in that, but obviously it had to be Jey with the win and going through. We then had a Randy Orton promo. We had a happy Randy Orton. Again, this is the Randy Orton who signs autographs on the way down to the ring. He's smiling at fans and thanking them, in particular for singing his song. Even though it took 15 years, they got there. And so big props to the French crowd, because obviously it was Backlash which started that. And he made a comment that no one's ever sung his song in 15 years, and it was fantastic to hear. And since then, to be fair, every crowd has done it, and he's really enjoying that, and he really appreciates it. So, he said he wanted to make this quite a simple thing. It was all about the World Heavyweight Championship. He was the youngest person to win the World Heavyweight Championship. And then when they did the merging of the championships, they had 2 World Heavyweight Championships. He was the last person 10 years ago to have that. And, now he wants to be that 15-time champion. And it was all about the championship. But it was Gunther, the Ring General, who has made it personal, talking about his family. And he's basically saying he's going to humble Gunther when they face each other, because that is how Randy Orton's progressed. He's fought his demons, and all the demons that he has faced, none of them are as strong as Gunther. That was a really nice line. I like that. So it's just a simple promo. So Gunther is already over in Europe. He's been doing some live shows in Belgium, which is actually his home country, not Germany. But obviously they love him over there, and he's really appreciative of it. And I think he's going to have a fantastic time in Germany. And but in terms of predictions, we'll have to wait until Thursday's episode. We then had a huge match on Monday Night Raw in every sense of the word, with big Bronson Reed versus Braun Strowman. Meat versus meat. This was something, I gotta tell you. These 2 athletes, they performed some fantastic moves in the ring. We had crossbodies off the top of the rope in the ring. We had a suicide dive by Bronson Reed through the ropes onto the outside of Braun Strowman. That was crazy. And I thought, that's pretty much as crazy as it was going to get. But the fight made its way outside. They were beating each other backstage. Security tried to get involved. Braun Strowman ended up throwing security guards all over the place. Again, these guys do not get paid enough. I hope they have medical insurance or they've got medical benefits with WWE, because the way they are treated would not fly in my company. But anyway, at this point, it kind of stopped being a match, because surely the referee must have done a double count out, because as far as I'm aware, it wasn't a no disqualification match. But then it moved into the car park, and we had Braun Strowman throwing Bronson Reed onto the top of these cars they were using, which were like segments of the old Titantron, with these like triangle mesh borders that went around the edge, throwing or trying to hit each other with those, throwing each other and then hitting the cars. And eventually we got into a position where Bronson Reed hit Braun Strowman with a pipe, put him out onto the roof of a car, and he climbed up onto the top of the car park ledge and then did a tsunami off the top onto Braun Strowman through the damn car. That was a sick spot. It was immense. And this is an example of how you take a sort of wrestler who is very much mid-card, maybe 5 weeks ago, to a superstar that is demolishing people, tearing through the card, and the crowd are loving it. Whenever he's going out for that tsunami, they want more. And what they've done with him and his character has been first class. Big, big props. So, what can I say? It was a hell of a thing. Braun Strowman at the end, Adam Pearce was having a freaking heart attack. He was calling for, obviously, medical attention. Braun Strowman was saying that he couldn't feel his fingers afterwards, but Bronson Reed walked away from it, again, showing that strength and power. So I don't know if that's going to be Braun Strowman out for a few weeks now, but Bronson Reed continuing his rampage, and he's going to be part of the Intercontinental title picture. And oh God, him versus Bron Breakker, that'll be a hell of a match. Then we had the second of our Intercontinental Championship tournament matches. We had The Miz versus Pete Dunne versus Xavier Woods. I wasn't quite sure how they might go with this. I thought it was either going to be Pete Dunne or Xavier Woods. Maybe Xavier Woods progressing where Kofi Kingston didn't in terms of that solo pursuit for a title that he's so desperate for. But as it looks as if Xavier Woods may secure the win over The Miz with a flying elbow, Pete Dunne pulled the official out of the ring before the 3 count. He then quickly took out Woods and hit the bitter end on the A-lister to steal the victory, and he advances to the second round of the tournament. So Pete Dunne is now in the Fatal 4-Way match for 2 weeks' time. Then to the main event of the evening, we had Uncle Howdy versus Chad Gable. And this was obviously the in-ring debut of Uncle Howdy. Fantastic entrance. He had the upper hand to start with, which is what you expect. But then the comeback from Chad Gable. In the final few minutes of the match, the referee got accidentally knocked out by Chad Gable after Uncle Howdy pushed him. And this gave an opportunity for American Made to start beat down on Uncle Howdy. They took him out of the ring and threw him into the barricade. He started laughing maniacally. They were like, why are you laughing? Lights go out, the Wyatt Six pop out, start demolishing American Made. It then goes back to Chad Gable in the center of the ring, and Uncle Howdy with his sister Abigail finishing him off 1, 2, 3 and wins his debut match. And that is how Monday Night Raw ended. So next week on Raw, we have 3 matches which are confirmed. 2 are part of the Intercontinental Championship #1 Contenders Tournament. So we have Ilya Dragunov versus Dragon Lee versus Dominic Mysterio, and Sheamus versus Bronson Reed versus Ludwig Kaiser. 2 really good matches there. Really looking forward to those. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to progress into the Fatal 4-Way for the #1 contender spot. We also then have Zelina Vega one-on-one with Shayna Baszler. So yeah, that was everything that happened on Raw this week. And again, a solid week for WWE in general. It's always a little bit hard that week before the premium live event. Obviously, we have one more SmackDown before that this Friday, but I thought both progressed, the narratives quite strongly. For me, the highlight was the Bronson Reed versus Braun Strowman match. Absolutely fantastic. And the brutality of it, especially with that tsunami onto the top of the car, that is something that should make the intro for that show, because that was fantastic. And the way they've done this character and built Bronson Reed up has been fantastic. And that's it for me this week. So I'm going to keep it relatively short and sweet. Again, this has been highly difficult in terms of me talking directly to you guys, but if you stuck around for this long, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. As I said, if you wouldn't mind going over to our YouTube channel at Bitchin' About Wrestling, if you're not already there, and hitting that subscribe and like button, I'd really appreciate the support. And that's it. So we will be back again this week with our Bash in Berlin predictions episode, which will be dropping late on Thursday or Friday morning, depending on where you're based. And also, I'd like to announce that this Saturday, I'll be doing my first live stream watching Bash in Berlin and giving my instant reactions as the show is going on. Really excited to do that. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but with the time it is over here in the UK, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes with these 1 a.m. starts and having to stay up until 4 a.m. to do these live reactions, especially when my wife is trying to sleep. But this week, obviously being in Berlin, the fact it's a much more reasonable time, I can definitely do it. And so, look, I'd really appreciate you joining me. I'm probably going to be doing it on TikTok this time to start with, maybe some other platforms. Check out my social medias to find out where that's going to be. On Twitter, we are bitching about WWE, and on TikTok, we are bitching about wrestling. Only because Twitter doesn't allow more characters. Otherwise, I'd love to have bitching about wrestling as my tag name, but I can't. So, hey. And that's it from me. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for putting up with me solo. And until next time, peace out.